Today, I would like to talk to you about the business of price gouging when we start to look at the cost of gasoline to operate our automobiles. When I think about price gouging, I guess I'm troubled with asking myself the question, has somehow the oil speculators been able to turn price gouging from a potentially illegal activity to a legal one? This is very troublesome, and I want to share 3 charts with you to let you feel my emotions on this subject. Let me share this 3rd chart with you. This chart really tries to put a monetary value to what it appears the oil speculators were able to do to our economy. In January 2009, the price of regular gasoline sold for roughly $1.79 a gallon. May 16th of 2011, we see it at $3.96 a gallon. Now when you consider, depending on whose numbers you believe, that for each 1 cent they're able to raise the price of gasoline, that translates into a minimum case of $1 billion a year if you consider the higher estimates that I've seen. It's $1.46 billion a year. So if we take the difference between these two prices of gasoline and convert that into billions of dollars, we find that the low estimate would be $217 billion. The high estimate would be $317 billion. Now those can become abstract terms unless you can have some way to visualize this. But if you look at the chart that you see on this page, a picture of a $100,000 bill. People were not using these to pay one another with. This was stuff that was created to make transactions between financial institutions. However, in the first case, these speculators are able to walk away with over 2 million $100,000 bills. In the second case, over 3 million $100,000 bills. And all I've done is to take the $3.96, subtract the $1.78 from it, and multiply those two numbers. In the first case, it's roughly 100. But you can readily see that it works right out really well, because the difference between the 396 and the 1.788 is 2.172 dollars, and that translates into 217.2 cents. That's where the $271 billion comes in. And if you take that number and multiply it by 1.46, you get the 317. Now, and you listen to all of this debate about balancing the budget, and we got to cut this, and we're fighting over 30 million and so forth. But what we're talking about, ladies and gentlemen, is the oil speculators have already walked away with over $200 billion. That will be their yearly take, just by being able to drive this price of gasoline back up. Now, I think we need to add a couple other things here. When I think back and try to understand what I'm seeing, what's going on here, I tried to come up with scenarios to explain it. And one of the most frightful ones that come in my mind is really a couple things seem to step forward here. If you think about it, when President Obama is strong, prices go down. If they can get him weak, they can bring the prices back up again. So that meant that there was a concerted effort to attempt to debilitate the president, to take his strength, to turn his strengths to his weaknesses. Now, if you think about it, you had the incarnation of the Tea Party people, and their effort was to do everything possible to demoralize the image of the president. You had folks running around questioning whether he was a citizen or not. And so we saw a strategy of being able to use what they call euphemisms. And a euphemism is when I use, I guess probably a better way of saying it today, is code words. You say these words that you know are not true, but it appears that the forces of the powers that be were students of the German propaganda leader, Dr. Joseph Goebbels. Dr. Goebbels taught that if you tell a lie enough times, then the people start to believe it. It becomes the truth. However, he also taught that the mortal enemy of the lie is the truth. President Obama presents his full-length birth certificate. It was clearly obvious all that was a lie. Here, one of the Republican contenders for office calling the president a Sambo. So we know that the idea here is to exploit racism. And their whole game plan is to go after that population that was in the class of 42 and older. Because they know these people lived during the time when segregation was the law of the land. So the strategy was to go after the older citizens that you figure would vote with the goal of taking the House and the Senate. In 2010, they won the House, not the Senate. And by doing that, they could encumber the president. The tragedy in all of that for the American people is the cost of racism. The ability to exploit the propaganda of racism we're talking about here. Looking at this chart that tells you that that's the minimum cost is $217 billion a year. Maximum cost may be $317 billion. And I asked you how many jobs have been absorbed in this tomfoolery. I get passionate when I think about it, that we have seen this concerted effort to try to make the President of the United States fail when we are in the midst of the Great Depression too. Absolute tomfoolery. And to me, the message that has to be shown is in the 2012 election. If folks vote their pocketbook, then it's absolute silliness to allow these right-wing conservative or ultra-conservative wing nuts to have you vote in people who are going to take your money. Just remember, each time you go to the filling station to fill up your car and you look at those dollars ringing up, ask yourself, why should you be paying $4 a gallon for gasoline that we all know really isn't worth $1.79 a gallon? Ask yourself that. Are you allowing the speculators to control your mind, to make you believe that racism is so important that you're willing to pay roughly $200 billion a year and put in their pockets? It seems silly not to be taxing these folks. Think if we took that $200 billion or $300 billion, we could then go pay off and start balancing our debt.